Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. Today I am talking to Mila Clarke Buckley, otherwise known as the Hangry Woman. She is a type 2 diabetes advocate and was diagnosed with diabetes in 2016.
2016, yes.
2016. And guys, I can't recommend Mila to you guys enough. She is someone who's always there for the type 2 community. She's been very open about her journey, and I'm excited to talk to her today on Beyond Type 2. So, Mila, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello, everyone. I am Mila Clarke Buckley. Like Tiara said, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 2016. And since then, I have just been the most outspoken advocate that I can be for people with type 2 diabetes. I recognized very quickly that the way that people with type 2 diabetes are treated and the way that our condition is looked at was just something that I didn't want anyone to ever have to endure after their diagnosis. And so I decided that I would start writing about my own journey with diabetes and just showing people how to live a happy and healthy life with type 2 and not feel ashamed of themselves or their illness.
Absolutely. And we're right here with you, Mila. Mila is one of our leadership council members. At Beyond Type 2, we onboarded our first 4 Type 2 leadership council members. And Mila is one of them. We are so happy to have her on board. As we know, as well, you guys know, at Beyond Type 2, we're all about teaching people how to live their healthiest lives with type 2 diabetes while dismantling all types of stereotypes, including old tired jokes that people with type 2 face, where you dive into body shaming and weight shaming, and also talking about diet and not shaming people with type 2 for eating what they like. So we're all here to make sure that this is an inclusive community, and we're happy to have Mila as part of that. So Mila, let's get started and let's talk about your diabetes diagnosis. Were you do you have a family history of it? What were some of your symptoms, and what was
Yeah,
your reaction?
Yeah, so it was actually a huge shock to me. And people always find that really interesting because my mom also has type 2 diabetes,
Mhm.
but I just like it was never something that we talked about. She had to take insulin, she managed her diabetes, she would stay away from certain carb heavy foods. And like that was that. She didn't make a big deal of it. She was just kind of like, this is what I have to live with. And so when I actually started developing symptoms, it was about 6 months before my diagnosis. And before that, I had been exercising like 5 to 6 days a week. I changed my entire diet and I was focusing on like plant-based foods and healthy fats and just like I had noticed that I was feeling terrible and I was like, I am exercising, I'm eating right, I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing. Like, why am I waking up in the middle of the night in like a puddle of sweat? And why am I like peeing every 5 minutes? And like, what is going on? Like, something has to be wrong. And so my husband encouraged me to go to the doctor and just have like a regular physical, get checked out. And so leaving the doctor's office, it like that was the shocker to me, knowing that I had type 2 diabetes and having the doctor tell me, you have diabetes and you're 26, and if you don't change your life and you don't change what you're doing, you're going to ruin yourself and you're going to ruin your body, and you need to eat right, exercise, and come back and see me in 3 months. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, if I'm already doing those things, like what more am I supposed to do? So I tried harder. I did more intense workouts. I like in a terrible way kind of like restricted food even more because I was like, if what I'm doing isn't working, I have to do more. I went back in 3 months. My A1C had dropped from 12% to 9, but still that wasn't like, my doctor wasn't happy about that. Like, he was just like, okay, you need to go further. Like, you need to do more. And I was like, I don't know what else to do. So eventually I was put on insulin and oral medication, and that started to help bring my blood sugars down even more on top of what I was already doing. But I just felt so discouraged when I was diagnosed, and I felt like I wanted more information, I wanted more help, I wanted some sympathy. Like, I just wanted to feel like a human being and to feel like I wasn't like destroying my whole health because of having type 2 diabetes. And it took a really long time to find a care team that was really compassionate in that way, and that like made me feel like I was listened to and made me feel like I mattered and made me feel like my health was a priority and important to them as my doctors and my team. Um, but over that time, it was just kind of like, what do I do? What do I do next? And walking out of the office, I was like, I don't know what to do if I'm doing all the things I know how to do, and that's not enough. And so that's kind of when I decided to start Hangry Woman, because I was like, I bet there are people who also feel that same way and who also want support and want to know kind of just the basic questions about like what type 2 diabetes is and how to manage it in the way that works for them, and how to find a community of people who are going through all of the same things that they're going through. And so now that's my job. And that's, my kind of like passion in life is helping people with type 2 diabetes know that they are important and that they matter and their health matters, and there's something that they can do about it, and there's something that is there for them to help.
That is an amazing story. I not the part with your doctor basically telling you that you would ruin your life, which is a frankness that people with type 2 diabetes get, but they don't get the other side of that, which is I'm going to help you make sure that that doesn't happen. And that sounds like that's something that you could have needed early on in your diagnosis. You were already doing quote unquote everything right. And it wasn't enough. And for your doctor to not be happy with the progress you made, um, does sound discouraging. And he could have, helped you along more with a little bit more empathy. And I think a lot of people, preferably like HCPs, forget that people with type 2 diabetes are human. Like, they have full lives and they didn't ask to get type 2 diabetes, but what they need at that moment is someone who's going to help them make sure that they don't develop complications, or at least like minimalize the risks,
Yeah.
and meet them where they are in terms of like what changes they're willing to make and what changes they can make to get to wherever they need to be.
Yeah. And I think that, and like, not to like take away any credit from that first doctor, because he gave me my diagnosis and he gave me some tools. Like he said, you should download this app called MyFitnessPal. It'll help you track your food and your calories. And so he gave me things like that to kind of meet me where I was, like as a 26-year-old, busy, like getting my career off the ground, loving technology kind of person. Like, he gave me some of those tools, but I think it was definitely like, he definitely lacked compassion in that area, and he was mostly focused on complications. And so I think that's where his perspective was. He was like, if you're this age and you already have diabetes that is this severe at like a 12% A1C, then like you like literally have nowhere to go but up, but you also are in a very bad place at this point and you need to do more. But to me, that was kind of like, okay, but like, what do I do to do more? Like, if I'm already doing the most, where do you go from that? And so I always think about that moment, but I think about how different it would have been to accept my diagnosis if he had said like, I understand how hard this can be. I understand that this is scary. Here's the path that you need to go on. You need to see a diabetes educator. You need to see a dietitian. What areas do you struggle with? And let's figure out what's going to help you. And sadly, doctors don't always have time to do that. But I think that it's really important for them to recognize that people who walk in to their office have probably a very minimal understanding of what type 2 diabetes is, and they need that help, and they need that compassion in that moment, because their life has changed in that moment. Like, everything that they have done or did do is completely different from that moment on. And so I wanted people to see that like, you could live a happy and healthy life with type 2 diabetes, and you can find a supportive team that's going to listen to you and going to help you manage in the best way that you know how. I didn't ever want people to feel stuck like I felt stuck, and I wanted them to see that there were ways of managing that definitely include your care team and include your doctor, but that also can help you on your own.
Yes, absolutely. Um, you've been pretty vocal about finding the right care team, particularly with your experience of getting a CGM. You're on the Freestyle Libre 14-day system. Can you talk about your journey to getting that device and what it took to finding a healthcare professional who said, yeah, I'm going to give this to you versus other healthcare professionals that made it difficult?
Yeah. So like I said, like love technology. I love like anything that syncs to my phone because my phone is in my hands like 24/7. So anything that can kind of like send data to my phone that I can check on, I am just in love with. And so I was doing 6 finger sticks a day, which was really hard on me. It was hard to stop every time I needed to check my blood sugar, especially with like a really active life and a busy work life. And I was just getting like burnout. I was like, and there were some days, and I'll be honest, I was like, I'm not even going to check my blood sugar today. Like, I don't care how I feel because I am just sick of it. Like, I don't want to like poke my fingers anymore. And so I had kind of researched and I was like, there has to be something else. Like, there has to be some kind of way to check your blood sugar differently. And I had read on Twitter that somebody said that they had a Freestyle Libre 14-day system, and they were like, I love this thing, it makes it super simple, I don't have finger sticks, it's amazing, I love it. And so I started researching it. I went to the website and I was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for, like something I could just like stick in my arm. It's 14 days, I only have to change it twice a month, like I don't have to prick my fingers 6 times a day anymore. This is awesome. And so I went to my doctor, and it was kind of like the second doctor that I had. So I finally got to a third doctor who was amazing and has helped me do so much. But my second doctor, I told her about it and I said, I really want to look into this. I think that it's something that would just help my quality of life. Like I can't do 6 finger sticks a day and I can't keep up with it and I don't want to do them and I'm not going to do them. Like, I'm just going to do what I can. And so she was like, well, I don't think you quite need that. Like, that's a bit advanced. It's a lot for someone with type 2 diabetes. And, you know, let's consider maybe taking down the number of finger sticks you do, but you should stick with that. Stick with your meter, the kind of like the manual checks. And so I was like, okay, but like making them less is not, you know, my priority. I don't want them anymore. And there's a device that does that. And all you have to do is prescribe it. And so, I was like frustrated by that. And then I got like kind of lucky, I guess I'd call it lucky, because I switched insurance companies. So I had to switch doctors again, which sucked because it was like, I have to find a new care team. I have to find new people, but you know, whatever, I can shoot my shot again, trying to like get this CGM thing going. And so I went and saw my new doctor, my current doctor. And I was like, I really want a CGM to manage my blood sugar. I just don't want to do finger sticks anymore. And she looked at me and she was like, why don't you have one? Like, why aren't you using one? And I was like, nobody would prescribe it. Like, I don't know, like I wanted it. Nobody said yes. And so she was like, oh no, we're going to get you a prescription like ASAP. We're going to do this today for you. And so that day I got my Libre, and it was literally as simple as just saying like, this is what I want. And then she said, okay, if it's going to help you and going to like make your A1C better, make your blood sugar better, make you more accountable to yourself, then why are we not doing it? Like, let's do it. And so that was a really amazing shift, because I feel like that changed kind of everything about my blood sugar management and managing diabetes, because I was going from kind of guessing, and which is pretty dangerous, like guessing, taking insulin, kind of like throwing the cards to the wind and being like, okay, whatever happens, happens. To now being able to like always scan my blood sugar anytime I feel any sort of thing. So like if it's like too cold outside, I'm just like, I'm gonna scan, I'm gonna see how I feel. If I feel dizzy or I feel I have a headache or like my head feels heavy, I don't have to like get out all of my like finger stick supplies. I can just hold my phone up to my arm, scan, no, in 1 second, and then go on about my day. And like another kind of interesting thing, I don't know if they'll like me telling this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway because I think it's important. But I had a family member who was admitted to the hospital. They went into DKA and they were admitted with a blood sugar of 700. And I asked them, you know, did you check your blood sugar? Did you know that your blood sugar was getting that high? Like you just said that you felt nauseous and you felt like pain in your legs and you felt weakness and confusion. And they were like, well, I had no idea. Like, I didn't know that my blood sugar was that high at that moment. And so I asked them, well, had you been checking? Do you prick your finger? Did you know? And like my family members that were home with them didn't check their blood sugar. Like they just saw that
Mm.
they were exhibiting the symptoms and they didn't know about DKA. And they didn't check her blood sugar. They just called the ambulance because they were like, that's all we can do. And so I said, I have another sensor that I can spare you. You need to ask your doctor for a prescription, but you can wear one of mine and see how you feel. See if you like it. See if you like the style of it. If you like it on your arm or not, if you prefer finger sticks to it, just see how you feel. And it was so amazing that it had given the rest of my family peace of mind because I was able to sync her app to theirs so that they could see her blood sugar every single time
Mhm.
she checked it. They don't worry about her, worry about how she's doing because they know, like, if they have the information and the data. And she loved it. She was like, I can't believe that I don't have one. Like, I
Yeah.
can't believe and she never knew. Like, she's seen me wear mine and she's asked about it, but she never knew really what it did.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was like a really amazing moment for me because I was like, okay, like this is a tool that can be helpful for so many, and can not only just like help you avoid finger sticks, which is kind of like just like the biggest complaint about checking your blood sugar, but it
Yeah.
also just creates a peace of mind that you can know like accurate information about your numbers when you need to know it, as soon as you need to know it. Because if she was feeling bad before, all she had to do was take out her phone and scan, and she avoided taking her blood sugar because she was like, oh, I have to do a finger prick, I'm sure I'm fine.
Yeah.
When in reality it was like, oh my god, like you're
Yeah.
going into
No.
DKA, like that's really scary. So that to me was kind of like another moment of like, I wish that everybody had access to tools like this because it can really change your life and change your perspective on how you're doing, but also give you the information that you need to make decisions about your day
Right.
very quickly without having to just like stop everything, and make it like a messy process.
Can you talk more about how your husband has learned about diabetes and the kind of care system that you have just in case something happens to you, or what was he surprised to learn about with your type 2 diabetes?
Yeah. So when I was diagnosed, like he kind of made a commitment to know as much as I did because
Yeah.
he always wanted to make sure that I was taken care of. And so he like let me do a finger stick on him. Poor thing. He hates blood and he hates needles. So he turned like ghostly white and was just like, oh my gosh, like was so nauseous. And I was like, yeah, I have to do that 6 times a day. So and he like was there along the way with me and learning about different foods, learning about like the makeups of different foods and like what carbs work for what I eat and what don't, and learning about like different ways of cooking, exercising with me. Like he has been just such a rock for me in terms of managing diabetes. And I know that like not everybody is lucky to have that support system,
Yeah.
but he realized the severity of diabetes, and that especially with type 2, like diabetes and diabetes complications can be so slow and over time that they are not apparent. Like they don't look
Right.
like anything, they don't look like they're there until they're right in front of you and until
Right.
you have those complications. And so he wanted to be sure that like at all costs I avoided as many complications as I possibly could. And not to say that like you can prevent any complications, because you can't. Like you might be prone to getting some complications over others, but he wanted me to be able to like live a happy and healthy life with diabetes, but also take care of myself and feel like somebody had my back in terms
Yeah.
of also taking care. um, and so like when I told him like it's really hard for me when we keep chips in the house, like I know that you can have chips and you love
Hmm.
them, but I also love them, and like I can't stop at just the serving size of 10 little crisps. Like I'm gonna want to
Right.
eat the whole bag. So like can we adjust, or can we like figure out like different foods that can maybe like satisfy like what those other foods do for us? And he was like totally open to that.
Yeah.
And so it's been really awesome in like my journey of diabetes and kind of like relearning what I can do and what I can eat, and like what works for my blood sugar and what doesn't, to have him there with me and like ready to try new things. Like if I'm like, oh, I found this recipe, I want to try it, I think it's going to be great for my blood sugar, even if he doesn't think it's like gonna be good and he will like
Yeah.
it, he's
Yeah.
like, all right babe, I'll try
Yeah.
it. And so that's been like really amazing. And then he's also learned about kind of the other end of it, like what to do if my blood sugar is high, or what to do if I have a low blood sugar, or how to help me if I am like having any like symptoms that just don't seem right. And
Yeah.
so he is like really good about kind of like recognizing those things and also pointing them out to me when I might not see them myself. And so that's been really helpful for me in the whole process, just having somebody there who can kind of identify for me, like, oh, I think you should do this. Like, hey, I noticed you haven't eaten in a couple hours. Like, maybe you should have a snack, or like, do you want something, or can I like make you something? And so it's been great to have him just as that like supportive person.
Right.
Because I think it would be like 1,000 times harder without somebody there to be helpful in that way.
Absolutely. And yeah, that support does make a world of difference. Like we know, like Beyond Type 2, our tagline is "You're not alone." And it's for not just people who have diabetes, but people impacted by diabetes, because your husband is also impacted by type 2. So it is important for him to learn, like, what are the signs and symptoms? What does he need to do just in case, in event of an emergency? He knows you, so he knows like when something is wrong. And having that extra support, it relieves a burden of feeling like you have to do everything by yourself. um, and it goes like when it comes to having family members there, you can also be vulnerable with them too. So when something is wrong, or where you feel burnt out or distressed, you know that your family member will be there to just kind of like shoulder some of that burden for you, when you
Yeah.
feel like you can't carry it by yourself. um, but now I want to talk about food.
My favorite topic.
Mine too. Food and cooking. All right, so let's talk about some of your favorite recipes. I want to learn about what was a recipe that you were surprised that you could make that was blood glucose friendly for you.
Ooh, that's really interesting. Okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but I made a version of fried rice, right? Which is like all the carbs in life. Like you can't eat it without, you can't even think about it without spiking. And so instead of rice, I replaced the rice with cauliflower. I made riced cauliflower. And then I made all the other fried rice ingredients. I put carrots in it, ginger, soy sauce, egg, shrimp, like everything else that I love, like scallions, like all of it together.
Yeah.
And the thing that was awesome for me is that, so I trick my husband all the time. Like I will tell him like, oh, I'm going to make this for dinner. So I was like, I'm going to make fried rice for dinner. And he was like, you can have fried rice. And I was like, yes. And so he was like, okay, sure, whatever. So I made it. And then after he ate it, he was like, this is really good. Like, are you sure that this is like friendly for your blood sugar? And I was like, oh yeah, listen to this. And so I told him, I like riced cauliflower, put it in the food processor, made it look like rice, and like cooked it like just a little bit, so it's like al dente.
Yeah.
And then like made it like rice consistency and
Yeah.
texture, and then seasoned it with like everything that I would normally season it with. And so he was just shocked. He was like, I can't believe that you can make a classic dish like that is like so rooted in like our lives, and create something that tastes like the original thing but is still good for your blood sugar. Like he was just like in disbelief that that was even possible. So it's been so fun to do stuff like that,
Yeah.
and like just like change things up or adapt ways that we can eat different foods. Like recently I just made Indian butter chicken. I love butter.
Mm.
I always have it every
Hmm.
time I go to a restaurant. It's like so basic, but I just love it. But it's hard to have it with like the rice and with
Yeah.
garlic naan and all of the carbs that come with it. So I experimented with different sides, and I was like, what side could I have with it instead of rice, or like a tiny portion of rice so I still get that like
Yeah.
that taste that I want, but that doesn't spike my blood sugar as much. And so I was like, oh my God, broccoli. Broccoli is like the best because it's hearty, it's fibrous,
Yep.
it's got a great taste. You can
Yep.
put like a little butter on it and it's delicious. And then it matches the flavors that you put into butter chicken so well.
Yeah.
So I made it the other day, and like I put like, I think it was like less than a quarter cup of rice, maybe like an eighth cup of rice, and then like a whole huge serving of broccoli, and then some butter chicken.
Yeah.
And that was like amazing. Like we were like, oh my gosh, we can still have the same thing we love, and it's not going to spike my blood sugar sky high. And then Brian can still enjoy foods that he wants without having to like totally replace everything. So it's been like a really great process for us too, in terms of like learning to measure our food and weigh it and figure out portions so that we don't have to like give up things that we love or like completely change them to make them like healthy versions, but like we may have smaller portions of dishes that we really love, and that's okay. Like it's just relearning how to eat and relearning how to kind of like manage our diets. So I love that so much about food, is like that you can transform so many different things into things that you love still, and like not lose the essence of them, but also not miss out on what you want. And like one of the things that I do with my friends, like they like to go out for sushi. And well, not since like all of this started, but like and I love sushi. Like I just love it so much. It's so delicious. But I was like, I can't eat that many rolls because there's so much rice. Like I'm gonna spike, and I don't want to pay for that later on. And so I started asking if I could have my rolls rolled in sliced cucumber instead.
Ooh.
And a bunch of restaurants have accommodated that. They've said, yeah, we make your rolls fresh anyway, so we can do it for you. And they'll roll my sushi in cucumber instead of rice. And so I get all of the fillings, all of the same things. I just don't have the rice, rolled inside. And it's delicious. Like it's so good, but it is blood sugar friendly for me. So I'm always looking at ways to kind of like game my food.
Yes.
And figure it out, especially in restaurants and stuff, because like you kind of know the basic ingredients, but you don't know everything that they use. So you just kind of have to figure it out as you go. And it's been fun to figure out like different accommodations that I can make for my food. And because of like allergies and people's food preferences, restaurants are used to it. So I'm not afraid to ask anymore. And just say like, hey, can I have it substituted this way? And lots of people are really kind and will do it and do it without a fuss. So that's been, I think, something that's definitely really cool. Just when I think about like food and like my favorite dishes.
That's so awesome. Like when it comes to like just making healthier choices, there's so much that you can do with food. You can create whatever kind of rules that you want, like you said, like with your butter chicken, in your cauliflower fried rice, such like small substitutions, but that have such big flavor still, and you don't really miss the former or like the regular counterpart as much. Now people always want to know about the sweet stuff. Or dessert, because even though we have diabetes and people tell us that we shouldn't eat sugar, we still like to satisfy our sweet tooth. So let's talk about some healthy choices that people can make when it comes to dessert.
Yeah, so I love baking with Truvia. So just like stevia sweetener, it's my favorite to bake with because it browns, it's not bitter. It does take some math to bake with Truvia, just because it's not always 1-to-1 with sugar, depending on the kind that you get. But once you kind of figure out the balances, it's awesome to work with, and it can literally go into anything that you love. Like you could put it in cheesecake, you can put it in cookies, you can literally use it in just about everything. I also, with like, for instance, when I make cookies, I like to use almond butter as a base instead of flour, interestingly, because almond butter and a little bit of almond flour actually gives you that like soft cookie consistency. And it's higher in fat, but it's much lower in carbs. So if you're looking at your blood sugar in terms of like how you might spike, you actually stay a little bit more level when you use kind of that combination of things. And then you get a lot of protein from almonds as well, which is really nice. And almonds have like that nice nutty flavor. So it's really cool to kind of like find those substitutions as well when it comes to sweet stuff. And then I love cheesecake. Like cheesecake is just one of my favorites. So I make a lot of like flavored cheesecake balls, and it's literally like,
ooh, that sounds good.
Cream cheese. Yeah, it's so good. It's like cream cheese, butter, powdered sweetener, whatever sweetener of your choice,
Right.
and then whatever flavors. So like if I want fresh strawberries in it, I'll dice up some strawberries and throw them in there. If I want like white chocolate chips, there are plenty of options for like sugar-free white chocolate chips all over the place. And I'll throw them in there, put them in like a little, you can either put them in like an ice cream scoop, like scoop them out and put them onto like a baking sheet and freeze them. Or you can use a mold and just like put them all in a mold and make them little bites. And then you just take them out when you want to eat them, and just snack on them. So I found like just kind of like fun ways around the things that I love. Like cheesecake and cookies are like two of my favorites, and they're also very high carb in their original form. So it's fun to find ways around it and make like little fun desserts that can work and that are like maybe 2 or 3 grams of carbs per piece. And then you don't feel like this guilt also about eating something sweet and spiking your blood sugar.
Yeah, those cheesecake balls sound amazing. And like I like how you mentioned earlier that you that you tricked your husband. Because I did the same thing like with my mom too. So I made like these black bean brownies because like, you know, I don't want to feel like the guilt and be upset when my blood sugar is like in the 300s. I would
Yeah.
rather just keep it at like the, you know, 100s or so. Um, and I made these black bean brownies, no flour added. And I topped them with like some kosher salt and some walnuts. I was like, hey, Mom, why don't you just try these? And she was like, oh my God, these are really good. And I was like, I made them from black beans. And, and then I did something even further than that. I brought them to Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't tell anybody that they had black beans in them. And until like I think my uncle took a bite. He was like, "Oh, these are really good. They're nice and fudgy." And I was like, "Oh, really? You like them? I'm so glad because it made out of black beans." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah." And you know, they always ask that question like, "How did you make healthy food taste good?" And I think this is sort of bigger than diabetes, but like healthy cooking doesn't have to be boring at
Yeah.
all. Like you can anything that you buy in the store or anything that you get at the restaurant, you can make at home. And the point about healthy cooking is being able to see everything that you're putting into your food and being able to control those ingredients because when you go out to a restaurant unfortunately you don't know um, everything that they put into it and even if you get a plate of something that's deemed healthy it may be high in carbs fat and sodium and if you're trying to watch all of those things it would be better to just recreate it at home and it takes a little bit of trial and error but once you get it down you know that's a new skill that you've learned and you'll find that you'll rarely ever go back to getting what you had before.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of speaking of restaurants and just like culture in general, like I know like I was born in like the Northeast, but I was raised in the South and we were always taught it is rude to not leave or to leave food on your plate. It is rude.
Yeah.
Like if you leave food on your plate, you are insulting the person who made it for you. So you
Yep.
better eat every single thing on your plate. And I always like that's just what I grew up with. So I always thought like, oh my God, well, if I don't like eat everything that I get at a restaurant, you know, like
Yeah.
it's rude. And then I had to condition myself and learn like what they give you in a restaurant is like 2 to 3 times the size of what you probably actually should be eating.
Right.
And so like just put half of it away immediately, ask for it in a to-go container.
Yep.
So it's out of sight, out of mind, and they can bring you the rest on a smaller plate and you can eat the right portion.
Yep.
And it took me like what like 26 years to learn that and I was
Mhm.
just like oh wow like I didn't even realize that this is an issue or that you know I just always thought like okay what they bring you is what you have to eat and I have so many friends still who look at me like totally weird like if we go out to eat and they're like you're already getting half of it to go why and I'm like because like the portion of like
Yeah.
salmon I'm supposed to have is only 3 ounces this is like 15 ounces of salmon like, and so it's learning that too you know like portions are so important and
Yep.
I love carb counting for that reason because like weighing my food and kind of like counting carbs and
Mhm.
understanding the like makeup of my entire plate really helps me manage my blood sugar a
Yeah.
lot. And it gets me to stay better within my goals.
Yeah.
I will say that like during quarantine, like I did not care at first. I was like, my blood sugar is high, it's high. I don't care. Like
Yeah.
it's too hectic, it's too crazy. I don't even have time to think about managing my blood sugar in the best way. Like I just need to like get from day to day. But like now that things have calmed down a little bit, it's a lot easier to go back to those habits that I'm used to and really like focus in on kind of like staying healthy, especially because we know that COVID affects populations with diabetes and
Right.
as well as like the African American community.
Right.
So it's really important to stay healthy during these times. And I feel like I finally gotten back to that. But at first I was like, I can't even handle it. Like,
Girl, that makes sense.
do I
Me too. Me
want?
too. I had my moments where I ate and I was like, well, my blood sugar is really high. I think I'm gonna go take a nap now. Take a high blood sugar nap. And yeah, like, and right now I think it's a good time to start developing some healthy cooking skills and healthy eating habits. But we know like behavior change is hard, especially when it comes to food, because food is so rooted in our cultures, in our way of living. And for people who don't want to like give up the flavor just yet, just switching from a dinner plate to like a salad size plate or appetizer size plate, that is a way to cut your portion sizes like right away.
Yep.
You just have to make sure if you're making something really, really good at home, put everything away first in the refrigerator so you're not tempted to go back for seconds and thirds. Um, and then just like tasting as you go and learning. When I first started my health journey, I called it like reclaiming my taste buds, because I realized how much salt was in processed foods that it made it harder to taste some natural foods in their natural state. So
Yeah.
like playing around with like dried herbs and fresh herbs, instead of using salt, using things like vinegar and lemon to give you punches of flavor, but still making sure that you're watching like sodium, fat, and all that stuff in your meals. So yeah, like I'm glad that you gave some of your gems too. You're amazing, and guys, please check out her recipes. They are fantastic. Mila has a really good maple donut recipe on her website.
And it's actually like not high carb, which people, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Like I get these comments all the time, just kind
Yeah.
of in like the realm of having diabetes and having type 2, especially. I post a recipe and people are like, you're not supposed to eat that. Why is that on your website? And I'm like, just look at the makeup of the ingredients. Like, you will see that it's not as big of a deal as you think it is. And it actually, like, not that it is like the best for you, it's not better than like fresh vegetables, but like it's a maple donut recipe that is actually low carb. Like
Right.
that's a pretty like interesting accomplishment.
Yeah.
And so it's so fun to me to kind of like trick people in that way and like bring them in, and then they're like, oh wait, this recipe, like it's actually kind of balanced. Like how did
Yeah.
you do that? And I just find that so fun. And the maple bacon donut one was a fun one to do, because I was like, I want to make a donut and I want to make a fun one that like I've had and I've enjoyed before and that is just like super delicious. And I was like, oh, maple bacon. Like I have all the stuff to be able to make like a really cool glaze
Mhm.
with it. And then bacon and maple flavor is just like classic together. Like people
Yeah.
love those combinations. Um, so it was really fun, like experimenting with like that kind of pastry with almond flour and
Yep.
making a donut that is actually like really tasty and
So
kind of
good.
fluffy. And then also that is like has that like sweet salty kind of like flavor to it.
Mhm.
Like I was just like, I'm amazed at myself. Like
Yes.
I can't believe
Yes.
I just did something like this and it actually worked out. So it was really cool because I was testing out making baked donuts instead of making donuts that are fried or
Right.
fried in oil. So it was really cool also for that experiment to have worked really well. And then the actual base donut is really good. So I could use it with like like sugar-free chocolate or uh,
Mhm.
glaze it in like just like a sugar-free glaze or something like that and make different kinds of donuts with it.
That honey, that recipe is amazing. And if I hope the audience has learned by now, Mila is not sacrificing flavor to manage diabetes, and you don't have to do that. And also, you said something else about having everything in your cabinet. sometimes I think people don't realize like you have everything that you need. You just have to kind of think about what is it that you really want to make, and then looking in your cabinet or shopping in your cabinet to see what, you know, what ingredients you already have, and you can just like get to work. Um, Take like a Saturday or a Sunday to just make something fun and really have fun with it, because that's what cooking should be. Food
Yeah.
shouldn't be boring. It shouldn't feel like a chore. It really should be an enjoyable experience. And that doesn't change just because you have diabetes. Um, so let me get to my last couple of questions. We're good on time. They know I'm interviewing you, so they just said take my time.
Cool.
Um, okay, let's talk about your book. So congratulations, Mila, on releasing your first book, The Diabetes Food Journal. Tell us about the process. When did you decide to make a book? Were you already using other books and apps to track your blood sugar? And why did you decide to create your own?
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a like loose cannon when it comes to managing diabetes and figuring out what works for me. And I love like a hybrid of physical and digital, but I was tracking a lot of my stats in a Google Sheet and then through my Libre Link app and in all of these different places. And I was like, I really want just like a place where I can keep everything together so that at my doctor's appointments, I know that everything is here. I can flag certain areas where I feel like I need help in, or areas where I'm doing really well. And I'm like, I want to keep doing this, and asking my doctor about how to do it. And I just thought like, I love pen and paper. So I started kind of like bullet journaling to
Mhm.
write down all of my progress. And then in December, I got approached by a publisher and they said, we love your blog. We love what you're doing. Do you use journaling to track? And I said, yeah, that's like the primary method of my way to track my diabetes management. And they were like, okay, well, we have an opportunity for you. We want you to write a diabetes food journal. And so to me, it was like the ultimate just confirmation that like, one, I was doing things right. Like I was getting to an audience that needed help with managing diabetes and kind of figuring out like what resources they could go to. But then I was like, well, this is like my dream project because it's something that will help people manage diabetes outside of just the basics. And what I noticed about most food journals is that it's having you track your macros. And so like you're tracking all of those things, and then you're tracking your blood sugar, but you're not tracking things like your sleep or how much water intake you have in a day or your weight or just like any extra feelings or emotions that you're having during the day. And I thought that that lacked in so many other places. And especially when it comes to type 2, like this journal is for anybody. It's for
Right.
anybody who wants to just track and measure in general. Whether or not you have diabetes, you could use this journal, maybe aside from blood sugar, because you're probably not checking that if you don't have diabetes. But I wanted it to be something that everybody could use. And what I always found was that like even in like my own care, my doctors would say eat right, exercise, come back and see me in 3 months,
Yeah.
or eat right, exercise, take your medication and come back and see me in 3 months. But they weren't talking about like how I was getting up 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night because I had to go to the
Mhm.
bathroom, or how my sleep was interrupted, or how I was stressed at work and having a really hard time coping with the stressors of my job, and all of those kinds of other factors that really play into how your blood sugar looks and how your diabetes management is working over time.
Mhm.
So when I thought about the layout and I thought about who I wanted to help with the book, I was like, okay, this is really an awesome opportunity to show people that your diabetes health does not just revolve around blood sugar, exercise, and food. Those are the main components, but there's so much more to it than that.
Right.
And granted, it's like, it's a pretty small sized book, so I couldn't fit like every single thing I wanted to in the layout, but I thought that it was more than enough to give people the space to track the things that they felt like were important to them. And it even has like a little section where people can kind of track
Yeah.
things that may not necessarily be apparent in the layout. And that's all that I wanted. I wanted people to feel like they could track more than just those basic numbers if they wanted to, but
Right.
also have the basics down so that they could get a better picture of their diabetes management.
That is wonderful. And you hit like all of the points that also contribute to type 2 diabetes management. So mental and emotional health and stress, that that impacts not just our blood sugar, but the choices that we make that impact our blood sugar. So if you are under a lot of stress, you may be more prone to eating things that are high in carbs and fat, which we know will spike your blood sugar throughout the day. If you're stressed, you're probably less likely to sleep, especially if you're and especially for someone who lives with anxiety. I can speak to personal experience. When I'm stressed, my blood sugar is really hard to manage. Um, Sleep quality is another thing too, because we want people to make sure that they get enough rest to be able to make the right decisions going into the next day. Um, your book is amazing. I've started using it. I know I've told you this before, but like it's a warm book in the sense that it's encouraging and empowering, and not it doesn't make you feel like you're a bad diabetic. It makes you feel like, or a person with diabetes, it makes you feel like you can do anything, and it makes you feel like this is your safe space to record everything that's happening in your life, because the things that happen in your life also impact your diabetes management overall. And it is for anyone who, even for people who don't have diabetes, it's just still a good health journal anyway, because you can track every little thing in your life that could impact your overall health, or some of your habits that contribute to your health too. um,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's very introspective, I'll say that.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, like, it doesn't make you feel bad about logging, because I think that's why so many people avoid it, is
Right.
because it feels bad. You don't want to face a high blood sugar number or low blood sugar number. You want to do as best you can, and you don't want to feel like you're failing.
Right.
And that's what I wanted for people. Like, I wanted for them to enjoy pulling the book out and
Right.
writing down kind of like their progress for the day. And then at the end of the 4 months that, they have of pages, they can look back and see, like, what were the good days, what were the bad days, what were the days that I really needed help with and I really struggled.
Yeah.
And being able to pinpoint that helps you to like have the conversation with your doctor.
Hmm.
And I know that's something that I always struggled with in the beginning. Like, I went thinking this whole visit is based on my A1C test, so I'm not really going to bring anything here,
Right.
because he's just going to like judge me by my A1C test, and that's it, and
Right.
tell me either do better or you're doing fine, keep doing what you're doing. And
Right.
so for me, like, I never brought up concerns, or I never felt like I could say, like, my medication is making me nauseous every day. Like, what are you
Hmm.
gonna do about it, or how can I change it? Or like, when I take insulin, it burns. Is that normal? Like, having those questions
Yeah.
and, conversations with my doctor, and feeling um I don't know, just feeling like comfortable enough to have them, but also being able to recall them, because
Yeah.
sometimes you're not going to remember like something that happened to you 3 months ago if you didn't write
Right.
it down, and you're definitely probably not going to remember it in the doctor's office when you have 15 minutes with your doctor and they're going over like the basics of kind of like your chart, and then telling you what's working, what's not working. And
Right.
so having those questions like on paper, kind of like in stone,
Yep.
like, I feel like I could bring that book to my doctor and say, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I know I have this like post-it here with all these questions.
Right.
Here's where I'm struggling and I need some extra guidance. Like, can you give
Hmm.
that guidance to me, or do I need to see a specialist or whatever? And
Yep.
then you have the ability to ask those questions without forgetting them, or without like, there's so many times where I've left, I'm like, oh man, I had this question, I totally forgot. And like,
Yep.
now I'm not going to be able to ask them for 3 more months, or
Yep.
it's going to take them a couple weeks to get back to me in my chart online. So it's just, I feel like one of those ways that like you can take an introspective look at yourself, not feel bad, and just give yourself the data that you need to be able to make better decisions about how you're managing. And so I wanted people to have a space for that. And I feel like the book is just like a perfect way to do that. It makes me so happy that it's actually here.
It makes us happy too. Thank you so much for just representing just for people with diabetes in general. I know we talk about type 2 a lot, but like this is something that helps anybody with diabetes, and being able to recall your management and having that power to bring it up with your doctor. And like you said, even asking if you can't help me, please point me in the direction of someone who can. Or even like when someone journals some of their progress, it can empower them to go seek out extra help too, or learn about different specialists who can help them. Like I said, your journal is just fantastic, and we are so proud of you and your accomplishments. Um, Last question for you, Mila.
Yep.
If you had to go back in time to 2016 to talk to newly diagnosed Mila, what would you tell her?
I love thinking about this question. um, because I think at that time, just based on my conversations with my doctor and how I just like my overall sense of self-esteem, I felt like it was the end of the world. Like I was just like, there's no way that I can do any of this. I don't know how much better I can be. And I think what I would go back in time and tell myself is like, you're going to be all right. It's going to be okay. And it's going to get easier. Because nobody tells you that diabetes management gets easier. It always seems like it's going to be the hardest thing in the world, but eventually, like it always changes and it's a roller coaster, but you find your patterns and you find out what works for you. And over time, you start to learn kind of like what habits serve you best. And I
Yeah.
think in the beginning, I never thought that I was going to find that. I always thought that I was going to be lost forever. And I'm not, I finally found a place where I feel like I'm thriving and I'm going. And so I would just tell like the anxious Mila, like sitting in her car freaking out after getting, that diagnosis, like you're going to be all right.
Yeah. Awesome advice. And I'm pretty sure 2016 Mila would be just proud to see where 2020 Mila is today. And we're excited to just keep up with it, with your progress going forward. Please tell our audience where they can get connected with you.
Yeah, so if you want to find recipes or any of my little quips about diabetes, you can visit my website at hangrywoman.com. And I'm also at the Hangry Woman on every social network. So no matter what you follow, you might find me there.
Awesome. Thank you, Mila, for joining us today. We are, again, big fans of yours, and we're so happy to have you on our Leadership Council. Thanks, everyone, for watching our interview with Mila. Please go follow her on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Check out her book. Check out her website. Just check her out. She's amazing. And we will talk to you next time with our next guest. Bye, everyone.
Bye.